to the top, and I can see, you know, now I'm looking at the top rig, and I can adjust the field of view. Maybe don't exaggerate. You know, the middle rig will be something like 46, and this will be 40. And I can adjust, if I go into the body, I can adjust the circles. So as you can see, I can make the circles like tighter or larger. And then the interesting stuff, which is kind of like the heart of Cinemachine, is this aim module. So if I open the aim module, I can have two properties. I can have hard constraint, which means that camera will look at the object I gave it in the look at property, with a hard constraint, so it will always look at that. Or I can have composer, and composer is the guides that I hid before, so I'm going to enable them again. And as you can see, the yellow dot is the objects I'm looking at, and then I have some guides, which are probably difficult to see in the projector, but as I adjust them, they reveal, you know, this like central area, which is basically these parameters here, the soft constraints. So this central like focus area is a tolerance area. The yellow objects is the objects I want to focus on, and then as the objects move and goes outside of the tolerance, the camera is going to follow it. So it's going to try to follow as if it were like a virtual camera operator, you know, trying to frame a subject in every moment. And you can set soft constraints, and then you have the hard constraints, which is basically to tell Cinemachine the object doesn't have to go outside of this frame. You can keep following it, but it doesn't go out. I'm not going to set them now because it's you know, not worth now. But as you can see, I can set the aim for the top, then I can set a different aim for the middle and a different one from the bottom, or I can have them the same. But it's interesting, you can create like some kind of really cool setups. I'm going to show you. So as I play, and I'm looking from the top, the mouse moves. It's maybe difficult to perceive now, but there's like a slight delay in the focus. I'm going to show you better when we create an animation, a cutscene. Another interesting feature of Cinemachine is the noise. As you can see, each module here has the noise property. I'm not going to use it now, but it basically can add some noise to the camera itself. So apart from the camera movement, the camera can be shaky somehow. And you can use it to simulate, for example, think of you're framing like a big vehicle or a tank, and you're going very near the tank, then the camera shakes. But as you move away from it, so you're using the top circle, then you can reduce the noise. So you can apply noise only to the middle or the bottom rig, but no noise at the top. So as you know, you can have like this kind of feeling that you're getting closer to a very loud engine by adding shake to the camera, and it's all automatic. As you can see, like this doesn't require any programming. You can obviously extend all of this, you know, like the usual way. Like you can access all the properties and change them at runtime. But for now, like we're not programming anything. It's all like in the component. So now that I have this rig set up, I'm going to create the cutscene. So for the cutscene, I'm going to move the mouse to the 0 of the scene. Oh yeah, so how do I create a cutscene? You go to Window, first thing, and you go to, what is it? Timeline Editor. And Timeline Editor will open a new panel which looks a bit like the animation panel. It's empty now because I have no timeline, and I'm going to create one. So timelines are assets, and they live in the project. They're like scriptable objects, if you want. So I'm going to go to the root of the project, and I'm just going to create one here. And I go to Create, Timeline, Timeline. This creates a new asset. I'm going to rename it like Mouse. And I think the recording software quit. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, it's back. Yeah? Yeah. All right, so the mouse timeline that I just created, as I said, is a scriptable object. To use it, I just drag it to the hierarchy, and it will create a new object, game object. The game object will have a component which is called playable director, which already has the timeline connected. So the playable director is a component that plays a timeline. And when I select the object and I go to the timeline editor, then I can see the timeline, which for now it's empty. But I'm gonna add a new track. So for the first thing, I'm gonna add an animation track, and I want to animate the mouse. So to animate the mouse, I need to connect the object, and I need to connect the object that has the animator. So it's this one. I connect it to the timeline. And now that it's connected, I can add clips. And clips, I can add basically, animation clips from the project that were created for this model. So I'm gonna use this one, which is called greetings, greeting. And as you can see, now I have the clip on the timeline, and as I scrub the timeline, he will play the animation. So this is a timeline that plays automatically. As you can see here, the option says play on awake, which means that basically, if I move this clip here and I press play, while I'm playing, he will greet at some point, and then resume like the normal state machine as I showed you before. So this timeline obviously plays only once because I didn't set it to loop. The problem here is that it jumps to the greeting animation. So what I can do is I can set ease in and ease out times, so it blends with. So basically, the animator state machine is playing, and then the timeline is playing, and as soon as the clip starts, it blends into the greeting, and then it goes back into the animator. So as you can see, let's see if I can show you. So he's moving around, and then he greets. The only problem is that when he greets, he also slides, because I can still control it. But this is like a very basic example of how you use a timeline. Obviously, with this clip, you can move it around. You can also make it longer, and it will loop. But let's, so when I blend it, as you can see, it will do this weird thing, because basically it's blending with a state that he doesn't know. Like timeline doesn't know which state the state machine is in, because the game is not playing. So when it's in, when the game is not playing, you will see this weird behavior. It blends with like a default pose when he looks like he's hidden in the ground. But if I press play, then everything works as I just showed you. Hello. Let's now create a more complex timeline. So this timeline, as I said, it plays when I press play, but I don't want that. I want the timeline to start, as I showed you in the presentation, when there's gameplay, and then I perform an action, the timeline plays, and then gameplay resumes. So how am I going to do this? I have an object here, which is this interactive chest, which is two things. It's a trigger, and it has an actual chest. So the trigger is set up, it has a script that basically plays the timeline when I hit the button. So for example, let me delete this game object with the timeline now, and I'm gonna use the one in the chest. So the chest also has a playable director. I connect the timeline that I want to play. And instead of being play and awake, it's gonna be triggered by this script here, which I created. So if I press play now, and there's one last thing I have to do before. So because the timeline, this timeline here, this object, is a scriptable object that's in the project, he has no knowledge of objects in the scene. Why is this? Because I could use it in multiple places in the same scene, and I need to connect the timeline to different objects. So let me show you. If I open the timeline editor, as you can see, the timeline still has the clip that I created, but here the object is not connected anymore. I need to reconnect the mouse And this is because I could have two timelines that are pointing to different objects, but play the same stuff on them. It's like a case that could be useful to create some specific animations. Because as I told you, like there can be more than one timeline playing at the same time in the scene. So I reconnected the mouse, and now if I press play and I move around, as you can see, as I enter the area, it says press Y to interact. If I press Y, then he plays the animation, and then he goes back. And I can play it multiple times. So now comes the fun part. Let's create a cool animation. So I'm gonna, instead of destroying the timeline and creating a new one, I'm just gonna mute this track. So I don't want to use this clip anymore. I can mute the track, and then this track is not gonna be playing. And I add new ones. So I can add another animation track. I'm gonna connect the mouse again because I need to tell timeline which object to apply the animation to, and I'm gonna use other clips. So I have, I think it was open chest, which is this one. So as you can see, the mouse opens the chest. Then I have, oops. Hide in basin, which is the mouse jumping in the chest. And here already I have a problem because these two clips were not made to fit. Like as I go through the gap, you see there's like this jump because he opens the chest, but then he makes like a small jump, and then the hide in basin clip has another jump. So I need to blend them together. What I want to do here is I'm gonna go where he's finished opening. He pulls down the arm, and then around here I want to blend in the other clip. So I just drag it, and then a blend is automatically created. I can also reduce this blend a little bit maybe. So, you know, he opens the chest, and then he jumps directly. So I can continue like adding other clips. I can hide in basin. No, I think it was idle hidden in basin. As you can see, there's like 1,000 clips in the project. And again, like I can blend them a little bit together. It's always good to like blend 5 or 6 frames, because then they're gonna play nicely. This is a very long clip. I'm gonna trim it, because otherwise the timeline is going to be super long. And then I'm going to use, so there's this like camera operator that's trying to follow the head as soon as it makes like these sudden movements. The next thing I can do is I can animate the actual chest. So if I'm going to enable it, that's how it looks, and it has an object which is the lid. But the lead has, I don't have any pre-made clip for the lead, so I need to animate it by hand. Another interesting thing you can do with timeline, as you can see, as I select the lead, I lose focus here. The timeline is not shown anymore. So what I can do is, when I select the chest and I see the timeline, I can click on this small lock icon, and then Unity will lock onto the timeline even if I unselect the object. So I'm going to select the lead now. What I do is I add another track, another animation track, like before, and I connect the lead. I'm going to say to the timeline, animate this object. But instead of using a pre-made clip, because I have none, I'm going to record animation by hand. So I'm going to press the record button, and then I scrub through the timeline up to the point where the mouse is opening the chest. So it's ready to open. I go to the lid, and I'm going to add a key to the X rotation. So the chest is now keyed at 0, and then as he raises his hand, I'm going to key at -22, which is a value that's okay for this lead, I guess. So as you can see, it's animated. and then I need to go to the end of the timeline when he's coming out, and as he comes out, I can go to delete, keyframe again, and as he goes out, I will put it at 0. So I have the opening and closing animation. There's one problem, which you can see. It's a funny side effect of rotations. Who knows how this is called? Gimbal lock. It's like it's a problem when you're using Euler calculation of angles. The way we can adjust it is if I go to the, so I'm on timeline, right? But I can, because I have an animation track, I can jump to the animation timeline, the animation panel by clicking here, edit in animation window, and Unity passes the keys to the animation window, and now I can see the keys in here. I can move them, I can scale them, I can, see them as curves as well, and that's what's happening. It's jumping, from -22 to like 380 or something. So what I need to tell here is just tell Unity that to interpolate this key, it needs to use quaternions, and then as I go back to the timeline, it will play nicely. But that's just a side effect of rotation. It's like a classic problem. So yeah, I can jump, as I said, from timeline. I have the keys here. I'm adding new ones to the animation panel to edit them. Or I can also see them here in a simplified version of the animation panel if I need to make like small adjustments, if I need to like move them back and forth, or just, But if I want the full power, then I will press edit in animation window, I jump to the animation, I make my changes, and I go back to the timeline. You don't even need to save. It's all passed back and forth. So yeah, I have the animation of the opening, mouse jumps in, looks around. I'm gonna add, let me play it just a little bit, just to show you where we got. So I'm moving the camera, I can move around, I can press Y, and then he opens the chest, jumps in, I can still move the camera and look around, he does this cute animation, he comes out and the chest closes. So another thing I can control, as I said, is sound. So I'm gonna add an audio track, and I'm gonna select the default mixer of the project, and then I can add, the same way as I did for animations, I can add audio from audio clips, and this was, well, yes, chest enter, and add from audio clip, chest exit. So I have 2 clips, I can place them where I want. The problem here is, as you see, when it starts to open, if I set the clip here, it's too long, because as he finishes, I'm midway through the audio clip. So one thing I can do is I select the clip, and here in the speed multiplier, I select 2, and I'm gonna do the same for the exit one, because I already know it's too long. Then I adjust it on the exit, so as soon as the lead starts moving, I play the sound. And unfortunately, you can't preview sounds as you're scrubbing through the timeline in stop mode, so you need to play. So let's see if I can, yeah, I have sound. I press Y, and it plays the sound, the opening sound, and the exit sound. And again, you can blend sounds together just by, clashing clips one on top of the other. You can have here ease in and ease out, so you can also create like fades. And one thing I didn't show you is you can have these blend curves. So by default, the curves are like just a smooth blend into the other, but you can adjust the curve. If you're used to that, you can just go in and, well, this is already blended, but oh, this is muted, whatever. I know what is going on. Yeah. So yeah, you can select like custom blending curves, using the classic curve editor, so you can save them and recycle them in other clips and so on. Let me put it back to what it was before. I'm using a very low resolution screen, so the interface looks a bit cluttered, but it's better because it's bigger on the projector. So now that I added the sound, I'm gonna add the last track. And the last track is basically a Cinemachine track. So it's a custom track that's already been made for you. As you can see, I have the class, let's call them the default native tracks here. Activation, and activation is just to turn objects on and off. Animation to use clips or to create keys by hand, as we've done with the lid. Then we have audio, control, playable, and then here you have like the custom ones. So we have Cinemachine, and then the Unity also comes with like a simple custom track, which is an example. So you can look into the code and modify it and create your own tracks and clips. So let's create a Cinemachine track. I create it and I have to pass as the parameter the brain. So I pass the main camera, and Unity will know that it has to animate, it has to act on that camera and Cinemachine brain. And then here I can add shots, camera shots, as if they were clips, animation clips. So I'm gonna add a new one. And as you can see, it creates a clip, but currently it has no camera. If you see here the parameter, it says virtual camera none. So I'm gonna create a new shot. And what I want is, I want a camera that looks at the mouse a little bit from above when he's in the chest, and it's a bit of a close-up. So I see the animation where he's like hiding really well. So I'm gonna go to Cinemachine, create virtual camera. Before we used free look, now I'm gonna create a virtual one. And this one, I'm gonna call it close-up camera. And I'm gonna put it into this object just for tidying things up. So as you can see, it's like kind of broken on the right, it's just looking on the floor. So I'm going to adjust it. I mean, I can move it around, or as usual, I can frame the action in the, this is a neat trick, I don't know if you know it. I frame the action the way I want, and I go to game object, align with view, and then the camera is gonna be aligned with the view in the scene view, okay? As you can see, now the camera is positioned here. Again, this is not a camera, this is a virtual camera, so the actual camera object is still this one, but the close-up camera is another Cinemachine camera that has a similar interface, simplified because it's just one shot, it's not the 3 rigs, but it still has the aim, the body, and the noise modules. It has all the camera parameters, like the field of view, and it has the look at and follow as before. Now, I don't want this camera to be active by default, so I'm gonna put this priority to less than 10, like 9 is enough. So the brain knows that by default, it has to get the free look rig and not this one. But as I'm setting up this camera, I might want to take a look at it, so I can press this solo button to quickly go back and forth, so I see what the camera looks like. I can adjust it any way I want, like in the scene view, or I can adjust the field of view somehow. And then when I'm finished, I can just unpress the solo button and go back to the free look camera. So I have the shot ready, and I want to add it to the timeline, which lost focus again. So the clip that I created before, I just dragged the close-up camera to the slot. Now it's connected to the clip. So this means that as the timeline plays, I'm gonna go from the free look camera that has the highest priority to the close-up shot in this part here, and then back again to the free look camera. And for this close-up shot, as you can see, as I select the clip, I also have the properties here, which is handy, so I don't have to select the object again. And I want to frame the mouse, and I want to look at his eye. So yeah, I'm gonna use the look at. I'm gonna look at the right eye bone. So now the camera is following him, and now you can see the Cinemachine thing, because as I go in here, you see the camera is trying to follow the eye. And if I enable the, actually I'm on hard constraint. or if I enable the composer, you see how as the eye moves out of the soft frame, the camera moves and tries to follow the action. If I make it smaller, then it's going to be more precise and more strict. But if I make it bigger, then it's going to be more loose, as if the camera operator is being like very sloppy, because maybe you want to make it like a French movie. So, are there any French in the? No, cool. Or an Italian movie. I know I'm Italian, so I can take the blame. So we have this shot. The problem is it's it's like cutting directly, which is maybe something you want, but I want to blend seamlessly. So together with this fixed point of view shot, I want to add another shot, which is my free look rig. So I'm gonna create a new clip. I'm gonna shorten it somehow, and I'm gonna drag it to the beginning, and then I'm gonna also blend it. And for this one, I'm gonna use the free look camera, and I'm gonna duplicate it at the end of the timeline, and I'm gonna blend it again somehow. Let's do like this. So now I have three Cinemachine clips, which blend into each other. The two at the sides are the free look camera, as you can see here, and the one in the middle is the close-up camera, fixed camera shot, which means that as I'm playing the game and I trigger this cutscene, I'm still in control of the camera, but then the camera will blend to this fixed point of view, plays the sequence, still by looking at the eye whenever he moves and stuff, and then it will blend again to the free look camera rig, which I was using, to the point of view that I was using before. So I get back to my gameplay the way I left it. Let's take a look. Right, so I'm this cute mouse, I can move around, I can go here, I can look, all around. I press Y, I can still look around, but then the camera will, well, it was a bit fast. The camera blends, you see I cannot move, and then it blends back to my free look rig. So if I'm for example, if I'm very low, I press Y, it blends to the fixed shot, and then as it goes out, it blends back to the low point of view that I was before. One last look. Now, he's scratching his butt. Now, I think for the timeline, for the demo, I'm done. I think I've covered everything I wanted to show you. There's much more to this because Cinemachine, as I said, is an asset that has been out for quite a while, so it's quite developed. For example, other options that Cinemachine has is having, for example, in this case, right, if I'm looking through the crate, I basically compenetrate the chest, which is not really pretty good looking. But Cinemachine also has another component, I'm not going to demo it now, which is called, so as you can see, there's different components. There's one called Collider, and what it does is it has it shoots rays from the camera all around, and it looks for colliders, and it impedes the camera from going inside objects. So if you have a level geometry with colliders on the walls and floor and objects, then the camera will actively try to avoid these objects so it doesn't get inside. And you can also have, you can force the line of sight with the objects you're framing. So if you have a character, the character goes beyond the wall and then the camera moves behind an object. If the line of sight is lost, then Cinemachine will bring it out to keep the object into the frame, which is very useful for third-person games with very tight environments. And then there are other cameras. You can, the way you set up Cinemachine, you can have cameras for every case. You can have a racing game where you have the camera behind the car, and as you know, as the car turns, you can tie the cinemachine to the turning, and so out of cameras, like you can have multiple shots, and then you ask cinemachine to get one of them, and he will try to get the best one depending on the situation. So if a character is blocking one of the shots, then he will get another one. So you always get the action framed, no matter what's happening in your game. Because obviously, if we were in a movie, then I could decide for the best shot, because everything always happens the same way. But that's what I'm saying, like, we don't need to think of timeline as a linear tool. You need to think of it as like, I'm playing, but there could be something happening in the background, and that something has to respond to what's going on the screen. So if the character is blocking one shot, then you need to get another camera. And this is like all possibilities that you have with this system, which, as I said, right now looks like a plugin that's been imported, but it's going to be integrated into Unity over the course of 2017, the 2017 version. And that's it, I guess. We covered everything. Yeah, the free look, the other thing maybe worth mentioning is, as you can see, it takes axes from the input. So I can always go to project settings, input, and mouse X and mouse Y are currently controlling the camera movement. I can adjust, for example, the sensitivity to have more sudden movements or not. And it's all like, thankfully, code-free. So if you're not programmers, you can still like create these cutscenes, blend them with the gameplay, and then a programmer can create like extra tracks and clips. And once created, then they become accessible from this interface, and you can sequence them as if they were normal clips. Let's play it one last time. So I move around, press Y. I'm still controlling, then I lose control of the camera, goes in. I'm keeping an eye on the camera on the eye, and then it blends out to normal gameplay again. And this is it for the demo. Do you have questions?
So much for this cool presentation with this maps. It's so wow, and really it's really useful for all the developers here. And I guess you have a lot of questions, right? So please raise your hand. There's one. And by the way, don't forget to rate this lecture in your app. You can do it anonymously or not, depends on you. So please give it 5 stars.
There's a bodyguard hiding behind the corner, ready to take away whoever asks about nested prefabs. So what's your question?
Thank you for your talk. Can we edit animator parameters in timeline? Not directly play animations, but edit some parameters like character is freezing or ground is shaking and character will play some.
You can, but right now you need to script it. So you need to create like a custom track. I mean, like this one, like Cinemachine is kind of a custom track. So you create a custom track in code, and you define what the clip does. So you can say like, this clip, at the beginning it does this thing, and at the end it does this thing. Or you can have 2 parameters, and then it blends through them. And then, you can, then once you created this thing, you can use it on timeline, and you can just create new tracks and wire in the properties that you want to control, which, as you said, it could be like the shaking of the ground, for example. So you can have a clip that accepts 2 values. One is the start shake, and one is the end shake. And then it will shake, or it might be 1 value. And then you can create different clips. One has 1, one has 7, one has 0. You put them on timeline, and then you can blend them together. But you need to, because it's a custom track, you need to code it with the playable API instructions.
Okay, next question.
Thank you for your demo. Maybe the standard question from the technical specialist. What about the performance issues, especially for mobile devices? Are there any known issues or some advices? What we shouldn't do to keep good performance?
No, you mean with timeline and this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean it's obviously classic things like the more you use, the more timelines you use, the more resources it needs.
Yeah,
but there are no issues like native issues, because in the end it's just just triggering stuff that maybe would normally happen in your game. So the timeline is just saying like animation play and sound play. Now, if in your game that sound gives you problems, then the timeline will give you problems. But it doesn't add like much overhead to what's happening. Obviously, Cinemachine is some kind of AI thing, but I mean the guy who developed it obviously looked for having it as much performing as possible.
So, for example, the noise feature for Cinemachine, it's not performant too.
No, I guess I don't know how it works underneath, but I guess it just has like some kind of noise generation, and then it reads the parameter of the noise, and then it moves the camera like it offsets the camera of a certain amount. But that's not what usually bogs down games. Like if you move the camera here or there, it doesn't make a difference. The problem is usually what the camera is framing and what it's rendering and stuff. But the movements are like, I guess Valentin will confirm, they're kind of free. It's like they don't add much to the computation, Again, like maybe the computation is on which camera to use and where to move it, but the fact that it's moving is nothing.
And the other question is difficulty to integrate Cinemachine and to existence to solutions, for example, some FSM in a game that already exist. How difficult it is.
You mean some finished state machine?
Yeah. Thank you.
No, I mean the Cinemachine has like a set of instructions that you can call if you. So what's the idea? You're thinking of something like you have a finished state machine, and then each one is a camera, is like a shot. No, like it might be. I haven't looked into the APIs too much, but it's like as simple as like calling the Cinemachine brain. You access the brain, and you just say like use this shot. So it's like a couple of lines basically.
And one more.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks for your talk. As you said, Unity bought an integrated asset from an asset store. So, do you guys have any plans to do the same for like maybe motion capture assets, or like create your own to complete the whole solution to like for cinematic stuff, or at least maybe like Kinect? I mean, we know Unity and Microsoft are best buddies, so.
When you say Kinect, you said.
Yeah, Kinect, yes.
I don't know, because Kinect, is it still like?
Yeah, I mean, just for motion capture.
Yeah, no, I don't have any news in that direction, to be honest. I don't know if there's work going behind the scene that we don't know yet, because sometimes this partnership also happen in like one office, and but.
I mean, obviously, for people who are really like using this stuff heavily, like for creating like motion, I mean, like the whole cinematic stuff. Maybe not even games, just using Unity for it would be just perfect solution. Having motion capture built in, and the stuff you just showed us, it would just.
No, it's obviously you're right. Like it would be a good thing to have an integrated solution. I guess it's just a matter of choosing which one, and because I guess there's like different technologies and standards as well of motion capture. So
there are already assets that are pretty good. At least I know at least one. And
okay. No plans to buy one right now that I know.
Okay, thank you so much. If anyone has more questions, please meet you after the lecture. So thank you very much. It was really nice. So let's give a round of applause. Please don't forget to rate the app. And again, I'm reminding